Young widows, we're brushed aside. We're swept under the rug. Or hurry up and get married again. Move on with your life. Get over it. And I don't think people are like looking at what that really means. What does that mean for someone that's gone through it? What does that mean for their family dynamic? What does that mean for their kids? What does that mean for their friendships? The whole 9 yards. This is Every Widow Thing. Hey everyone, we're back. It is early February. There's a lot going on in the world, and we're just going to get together and talk about the start of 2025, what that looks like for us, what we're doing to cope with our widowhoodness, and which we still are, and
they didn't come back.
Catch up with each other. Like we haven't been cured.
Well, Polly decided to go back on the dating apps.
I don't know why.
Well, I do it too. It's like you get on and then you get disheartened and then you get off and then you're like, no, I need to find someone. I don't know how.
I read that January is sort of like, gym memberships. It's a big influx of people. Maybe you told me that. Big influx of people getting on online.
That makes sense.
For the first time or going back to it to just see what's out there.
I may not be the most positive representative for seeing new faces because I got on a different app that I had not been on. And
do you want to say the name of the app?
Hinge. I hadn't been on Hinge, and y'all were like, you should get on Hinge.
Hinge was my favorite.
Mine too.
Well, it's the same people and the same photos.
Mm-hmm. That's where I met Brendan, yeah.
I mean, a few new people,
we were hinged,
but not many.
What happened? Because after the date, you texted us, and you were just like, I should have never gone. I spent more time. What did you say? I
spent more time figuring out or thinking about what I was going to wear than I actually on the date.
Yeah. So walk us through it.
So I was like, he recommended meeting at Jeffrey's, which I was like,
that is very nice.
Good start.
Swanky first date.
So I was like, okay, this is good. Well, first of all, I know you can't go to Jeffrey's without a reservation, but I kept my mouth shut and I was like, he's like, well, find a table. I'm like, great. And I got there first and it was an hour wait. And I was like, okay. So then he arrived and the hostess is like saying, it's an hour wait. So then we walk outside and he asked the valet, is there another bar around here? And I was like, Josephine House is right next door. We could just go there. Okay, I got to back up.
Let me ask you this. Were you in a better frame of mind when you first got there, or were you already perturbed because you knew?
Oh, no. I'm okay. I'm like.
Well, back up. What did he look like?
I'm like, stop. Okay.
All right.
So he pulls up in a red Porsche, like he wants to be seen,
right?
Clearly. I'm like, whatever. And he gets out, and I'm like, okay, he's kind of hot.
Was it Jake Ryan from 16 Candles?
No. So anyway, his red Porsche stays sitting in the valet area. I'll get back to that later. So then we go to Josephine House, and it's nice. We sit outside. They're like, we have a table. Worked out. It was a beautiful night, and the conversation's good. Like, I mean, I thought it was great conversation.
Like, what was the conversation?
Although it was mostly about him. I learned a whole lot about him. He didn't ask me many questions.
But a lot of men, when they're nervous, that's what they do, and they're trying to impress you.
Yeah.
So, right?
So I thought it was going fine. And our kids are around the same age. He threw in something he said about he said something like, after my wife died, and was telling a story. So I was like, okay, his wife died. And I kept wanting to come back and say,
my husband died.
How'd your wife die? But I could never find a...
Wait, you never went back and said, I'm a widow? He didn't ever know?
No. He never gave me the opportunity,
right.
Whitney.
She was letting him do
He asked me, okay, when we first sat down, he was like, did you work today? And I said, yes. And he didn't even ask me what I do. Like, it was a little bit awkward. Like, I never had the opportunity to say I'm a widow. Like, he never he wasn't saying my wife died. Like he was
like,
telling a
after my wife
story,
died.
and it was related to after my wife died. We moved. He went on with his story about him and his life and everything he does, and he was telling me like he works from home. Remember this. He works from home. He'd been home working all day. Just remember that.
Okay.
Pull up his picture after we
Oh,
did this story.
don't worry. Detective Holly found him.
yeah.
So
We should just pull it up right now.
Now I'm dying to know because it sounds like he's trying to impress you to me.
So then, and we had one drink. I mean, I felt like the conversation was flowing well and, enjoyable. Like I was having a good time or a nice time. And I wanted to keep going. Like I wanted to find out how his wife died, and tell him I'm a widow. Like I wanted to get further into the conversation. And then the waitress came over and he did the sign, bring me the check, just in the air.
After one drink?
After one drink. And he's like, I've got to get home. Well, he had to get home to take care of his dogs, even though he works from home.
Right.
And he'd been home. And I was like, okay, great. And then he started talking about, he was telling me about his car and how he drives a certain car when he's going to valet it. Because if he drives a certain car, he can pull up to the valet and they will let him stay parked there. And I was like,
So he's a little bit
okay. Very arrogant.
Yeah.
Very arrogant. And
Because y'all were supposed to go back to Jeffrey's.
well,
So-
I had gotten the notification that the table was ready, and I was like, oh, the table's ready. Do you want to go? And I mean, we both still had, most of our drink. And I was like, he's like, well, it's nice here. And I was like, yeah, it's great. I mean, we were sitting outside. It was nice.
How long was the date?
Hour and a half.
So then that's hurtful. Were you hurt then, or were you still like?
Well, I was like, hey, I'm going to let you go. Get back to, get home to your dogs because he paid the check.
Yeah.
And then we walked back to Jeffrey's to the valet where his car was parked right in front.
Like right on the grass or something. Like right there.
And he gave me a hug and I, left. And I just got in my car and I was like, what a waste of my time. What a total waste of my time. And it just made me so mad that I left work early so I could go home and get ready. And I changed 5 times and put me
How
in
long had he been a widower is what I was curious about.
same
because-
amount of time as me.
Oh,
So then you go home and you put on your detective hat.
Because I
found his
wonder if
wife's
he's
obituary.
dated. I wonder if he's
You found
dated
the
very
wife's
much.
obituary?
Okay.
Okay, I'm not creepy.
Dude, we all.
Anybody who says they don't do that is a liar.
It just sounds like it was super disrespectful that you didn't even get a chance to talk much.
The whole date was him, and then he made the decision that you weren't a good fit when you didn't even have a chance.
Right.
And so, did he text you later or
No.
say anything? So then
Did
he was
you?
done.
Did you text him?
The next evening, because I think it's shitty to go on a date through the app and then not close it off.
Yeah.
Like, send me a comment, like it was nice, wasn't the match, and that's fine.
It's gotten so commonplace that people can be so rude.
It was rude, and all I said when I was like, you know what, just because this is what I want to do, I was like, it was nice meeting you, and maybe like hope you had a good weekend, and that was it. Like,
I used to do that like for myself.
yeah, that's what
So
I
if-
was like, I
even
have
though
to do this
the
for
guy-
me.
Maybe the guy was a jerk or it wasn't a fit. It's just kind of how you're raised, you know?
Right.
Like I would either say, it was so nice to meet you, thank you for the drink, wasn't a good fit. Just, yeah, like you said, just common, polite.
I've been on the other side too, though, where like I can tell it's not gonna work, and then I just am uncomfortable and I get out of there. And like one guy texted me right away, and I said, thank you for the date. I don't think it's a good fit. And he goes, yeah, I could tell that by the way you zoomed out of the parking lot in your car. And I was like, sorry about that.
Yeah.
But then he went on to like get all angry and be rude on text. And I was like,
I know who you're talking about.
Angry people. Also,
Yeah.
even when I didn't do anything wrong, but maybe I just said, oh, it's not a good time. I have little kids. This week is not going to work for me.
Yeah.
And then the whole, well, why are you even on the app if you can't make time? And they just think it's different if you're a widow and you're a full-time mom than if you're divorced and you maybe have that week off or some days off where you can plan dates. But I never really had that. And so sometimes it was just really hard to juggle.
Well, you kind of feel bad because I'm talking about like not like closing it out.
Right. And how many people did you ghost this week?
No, not any, but I had the one guy that not saying
Colorado?
names. No.
This the boat guy?
I never heard about the Colorado date.
No, this is a guy. I met a while ago, and
Camper?
no.
The plane?
You act like I've met so many people, and I
thought you
haven't.
dated the homeless guy.
No, I did. I'm sorry. He's a nomad.
Sorry.
And I would not call
Couch
it
surfer?
dating.
Oh my God.
It was a nightmare.
That's so funny.
No, the guy that I went two-stepping with, and he listens to our podcast, and like he's a nice guy, but I never, like completely cut it off. I was just like,
I thought you did kind of say something though.
I just didn't feel a romantic connection, but I enjoyed the company, like two-stepping and stuff. So I never
Did he text you recently?
no, not recently.
Well, if you go to Don's Depot
I know.
on Friday nights,
Is he there?
But
Always?
that's when he's there.
it's just I don't have a romantic connection, and
And
so
that's the
and
hard
if he's
part.
listening, I'm sorry.
But that's the hard part. And look, it's gonna happen. Not everyone is gonna, be attracted to us, and we're not gonna be attracted to everybody. The issue is, how do you handle it? Because obviously he was ready to go, but he hurt your feelings. But I've done that too, where I'm just like,
Well, it was just-
it was nice to meet you. Okay, gotta go, bye.
I did
What
have
was
to
it?
kind of learn that. I have to say I'm too much of a people pleaser, and in the beginning I would agree to a second date even though I knew, like in person,
Right.
even though I knew.
I'm
and
the
I would
same
chicken
way.
out when they
I'm the
texted
same
me,
way.
Like, ready for that second date? But I did then realize that it's kinder to not, lead someone on. It's kinder to be upfront about.
I know, but respond in the app and respond to me and say,
Correct.
I didn't feel a connection. I wish you all the best.
Exactly.
Bye. And then done.
Be an adult about it.
But I remember, Keira, you saying something on another episode where, over time, you stopped obsessing. Like, right now, I feel like the dates are few and far between. Like, you really are trying to be picky about who you go out with. So every date seems like a huge deal of, everything is on the line. Like, this could be the one. And I remember you saying you got to a point where you were like, yeah, I'm not even putting on makeup.
I mean, one of the jokes with me and Brendan on our first date is that I didn't really dress up or do a lot of makeup or anything.
Yeah.
Kind of rolled in the way I had been running around that day, and then texted my friends from the bathroom like, oh my gosh, this guy's really cute. And I kind
Where's
of
my
phoned
lip
it
gloss?
in. I'm like, I phoned it in on my look
Yeah.
because I got tired of, just sort of.
Well, and I kind of wished I'd done that. But then I was going to Jeffries, so you have this I'm going to Jeffries.
Really, we have to get to a point where it's just it's kind of like with auditioning. You go in thinking, you know what? If it's mine, I'm going to get it. If it's not mine, let it go. And
Right.
you don't, because when you care so much and you want to find that next great partner, and that's part of the issue too, because we're coming from a place of having great partners, and you want to have that again. And you put all your eggs in that one basket.
I'm pretty guilty of, I think it happened with Oliver too. I was always the type that if it's not there on the first date, I'm out.
Mm-hmm.
And I had the therapist the only one that I really saw for, that was really good was Cheryl. And she said, some people are a slow burn. You really do have to get to know some people. And as you get to know them, they turn into this wonderful person, not necessarily turn into, but you see all of their, like what he didn't give you the opportunity to see what a wonderful person you are. I was guilty of that, and Oliver was part of the problem because it was immediate. I saw him in the elevator, and it was, electricity. So after that, I'm kind of like, oh, I guess that's the way it's supposed to be. If it doesn't knock me over, then I can move on. So that's why I've been on probably over 60 first dates.
Well, I was about to say, in a way, don't you kind of think it's a numbers game? Some too, like the more you go out, the less of a deal it's going to be that you have a date because you've been going on a lot of dates, and then you can be pleasantly surprised versus trying to pick the perfect person.
Look, it's like practicing anything else, and I think that's why a lot of us, it's hard, and it's also hard when you're grieving and you're still in love with your dead husband, and so it's kind of like I would do sort of like what Holly is doing. Like I would have like a few weeks where I would try and go on some things, and then you have to take a break, and then I would talk myself back up into like, let's go back out and see what's out there. Let's try again, and it's just like anything else.
Remind us how many guys did you go out with and kind of start a relationship with before Brendan?
I would say 2.
Okay. And that's in
one was somebody I knew from my
years?
past.
Or how long?
And then the other one was maybe about 7 months.
Yeah.
But what was interesting about that one was it just never progressed.
Mm-hmm. The foreign guy or
I'm not going to say who it is, but
or the other
the one that was 7 months or so, but it never progressed. It was
lawyer.
like I remember like once the lawyer, right? Once I met Brendan, things were progressing with him the way I remember them progressing with Frank.
Yeah.
I think some of these men you meet, they're not really ready, and so they want to just have someone.
Yeah.
And it's nice for a while just to have a partner to go out to dinner with and, go see concerts or whatever. But I was really looking for that progression. Like, are my feelings growing? Are his feelings growing? Or, well, you've talked about this, Whitney, with your relationship.
Yeah, that's
kind of stalling out for a while.
Yes.
And then now you're
in.
growing. Now you're leaning in. Yeah.
Well, in this guy's defense, and God knows he needs one, he's also a widower. He may be quasi-dating too, like not sure he's ready for who knows, right?
Let's spin it and say, look, you were exactly who he was looking for, and it freaked him out, and he couldn't handle it, and he's not ready, so he got the check and he ran.
Or it's just dating in general.
To his red Porsche.
To his red Porsche and his dog.
Zoomed away.
But think about it,
Bye-bye.
you don't know. I mean, if you're kind of new to it still, and y'all are around the same amount of time being a widower, he may have waited a long time to date too. Who
but
knows?
at the end of the day, he was rude.
He was rude. There's
And
no
you can
accounting
follow
for
up
rude.
on the app.
Don't be rude. If you're going to go out there,
Don't be gross.
recognize
Don't be
it's
gross.
difficult for everybody and just be kind.
Well, I had one funny
ghosting.
thing happen that made me realize that guys can be kind of mean. There was one day, I may have said this before, but he drove up in a souped up car. It's like a $150,000 car. And I was like, great, not my type. I like low key, quiet, and kind of mysterious, like Oliver. So we go to the bar at Ichiko, and we're sitting there, and he's ordering all this stuff for me. And I was like, wait a minute, I have an opinion on what I want to order. So one of my friends texted me at the same time, sending me an order, and he was being so arrogant the whole time, talking about himself and about his career, and he clearly had done very well, and how he and his wife do this thing where they nest in the house. Have y'all ever heard of that?
Yeah, so the kids don't have to move.
Right. So he was telling me all about that. Well, apparently the kids stay in the same house, and the parents rotate in
And then
and
the
out of the
parents
house.
get like a condo downtown or something.
Right.
Yes.
And they just share
And the kids
space.
don't have to ever leave the home.
Right.
I think it is called
Isn't it nesting or something like that?
maybe.
But my friend was texting me, and he was like, what's that text for? I said, she's only telling me this like really particular thing to get at Uchiko that I'd had with her, and I couldn't remember the name of it. I just said it, and he was like, who's that? And I gave her name, and the joke is, he was like, oh my gosh, how do you know her? And I was like, well, she's been around a really long time. She goes, her husband is my boss. That was the most fun night, because after that man straightened
That
up
take him
and
down
flew
a notch?
right.
Yeah.
Oh, he was like kissing my ass
Then did you
the
enjoy
rest of the
it?
day, because he was clearly acting like he was better than me from the
Yeah.
moment I walked in. Like he was all this and that, and then when he found out my friend was his boss.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Holly. I know it sucks
Yeah.
I'm
But it
sorry
only
that
takes
happened
one.
to you. Your
It
loss.
takes one.
Your
I just
loss.
don't have the time to. I mean, that's why I was so mad. I was just like driving home, like this
And you were looking
sucks,
forward
and I
to
was
it.
like, "Damn it, Toby!" Like just so pissed off.
I know.
I don't know. Being alone doesn't sound like the worst thing in the world to me when it comes to if you have to settle. That's something I'm not willing to do.
We had a listener, I think she just DM'd us on Instagram, or maybe she did it on Insiders, I don't know. But she was talking about how she was thinking about dating again, and she was excited. It was a guy from her past, and she was really writing in to ask, like, how did did you keep it a secret for a while? How did you address it with the kids? But she said she's really excited about the butterflies and having a crush, and
She was on the
it
Insiders.
was on Insiders.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I try to remember of, like, yeah, we're not going to have the same relationship that we had. And in some ways, it can be better because we don't have all the child resentment. Like, you didn't give this kid a bath for, 4 years of his life, or whatever. Or you dropped your bags and went and played basketball. No one else, just me. All right, anyway.
I'm like, where is she going with this?
Can I ask y'all a question?
Yeah.
So I did go on a date about a month ago, and I didn't ask a lot of questions because I was like, it's too much back and forth. So I was just like, screw it. I said, can we just meet
no
for
pen
coffee?
pals.
But this guy, he was really nice and had great conversation. But the one thing I somehow missed that I usually know beforehand, he got texted where he said, I'm sorry that I have to do this because I have a kid at home. And I was like, uh-oh, that's a big no for me.
Yeah.
He has a 12 and a 14-year-old. And I was like, nope, how did I miss that? I mean, I am finally an empty nester. The last thing I want to do is so I said, he said, you look funny right now. And I was like, oh, I'm not hiding it well, am I? And he goes, no. He goes, what's the problem? I said, I've always just kind of decided that I don't really want to date someone who has children at home right now because I am a recent
ever.
empty nester. And ever. But I said, I just don't have any interest in, and if I want to be gone for a month or 2 months, I want that person to be able to come with me.
Yeah.
And he said, well, I'm not looking for a mother for my child. I said, well, that's good because, I certainly don't want to do that. I love kids. I really do love kids. I can't wait to be a grandmother. But 13 years of doing this by myself, the last thing I want to do, and people don't seem to understand that. Like, we've done it alone.
Yeah,
it is hard damn work.
Is a beat down that no one else can really relate
They
to.
can't relate to it. And the divorcees, most of them get a break. And after 13, he was only 6. So I'm like, no. When I told him, I said, my husband died when my son was 6. He still looked at me like, I don't get it. I'm not going to have you go to basketball games or soccer games with me.
So how quickly did the date end after that conversation?
I would think he'd appreciate the honesty.
Yeah, he did. He was actually, he said, I just was surprised. He said, you seem like such a person that's really into being a mother. I said, oh, I am. I sidestepped most of what I wanted to do in my career and other things because I love him and I wanted him to be okay. I said, but I don't have that in me anymore. I don't have it in me to sacrifice anymore. I'm ready to do what I want to do. If that makes me sound selfish, then I guess I am.
I don't think it's selfish. It's just that's your truth. You know what you
Right.
You have to set your boundaries for
Right.
what you want.
I think even for anybody that has kids, whether they're widowed, divorced, single parent, you're in whatever age your kids are, you're in that phase, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So you're in the baby phase, you're in the toddler phase, you're in the school phase, teens, college. And it is, I think, just adds another layer of complexity if someone's in a different phase, a phase that you've either already done, don't want to do it again, or a phase that you don't understand, like, applying for colleges, sending my child off, things like that. Somebody with younger children doesn't really understand the difficulties around my partner as a junior in high school.
Right.
I've sent 2 to college. I've been through that process. I've got 1 left. And I'm trying to advise him a little bit with his 1, who is a junior. And he watched me go through all that with my big kids for the most part.
Is he listening or no?
I just think it's hard until you're there, And right now, him and his ex are freaking out about SAT prep
Yeah.
and SAT versus ACT and what schools, in-state, out-of-state. I mean, all the things that I went through
Right, and
with
have
my
knowledge about.
with my older kids. And
No
so
way.
it's hell on earth. I mean, right now applying to college it's so hard on the kids.
Oh,
it's
so
hard on the
ridiculous.
parents. And yeah, and then he's dealing with the ex who I don't know at all. So
Yeah.
that's
I
their,
find that so
that's their
funny.
thing.
5 years in and you still have never
That's
met.
a blessing, though. You don't need her coming in and acting like y'all are friends or trying to talk with you. Like,
I think it was more difficult when my stepdaughter was younger because she really was like 12 or something.
yeah.
And I was, as a mom, I just didn't understand that. But
A
I
very
have
deep
now
way.
let this go because it's not my
is so
call.
sweet.
She is not watching my children. She's not doing anything with my kids.
Right.
So it's not really, I've kind of, and now, my stepdaughter's older.
Well, I have a question for you, Whitney, because somebody, I saw them ask you this online and you addressed it, but I think we could do it on air. Someone was asking you about when you were dating, like, when did you decide to tell the kids? You could say the same thing here, like, when did you decide to tell them? Did you sneak around for a while? Because that's a big deal. Like, when you've got littles at home like he
Right.
does, like, when do you, like, do they catch you when you're, coming out of the bedroom? I don't know.
Fudge, no. I was lucky because early on we were driving to school. This is before anybody could drive, and we're driving to school, and one of the kids is telling me a story about about her friend whose dad's girlfriend, blah 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 blah. And so it gave me an opportunity to be like, look, I'm not there yet, but when I do decide that I would like to date, do you guys want to know about it? Or would you rather me just keep it under wraps until it's something to talk about? And they were like, keep it under wraps.
Yeah.
They did not want to know. So I was lucky in that I had this conversation just accidentally. And so I didn't feel like I was keeping anything from them. And I would say, I'm going to go out with friends when really I was just going out on a date. Or, I didn't ever have anyone. Ryan didn't spend the night at my house. Well, I don't even know. I would go to his house because some of the time my mom was still living with me.
Remind us
So-
how old they were, because the oldest was
My
school?
oldest was 14 when Hunter died.
okay.
She was just going into her freshman year. And then my boys were going into 6th and 7th grade. So whatever the age is there, I can't remember. 12.
Same ages as
When they're
Daisy.
really little, you have to worry about them thinking everybody they meet is going to be their daddy. But when they get a certain age, they realize you
I
date.
had that. I had the whole, because Kara's was only 5, and I didn't date right away either, but I had the whole,
Yeah.
I can't have the kids attached to someone who's not the right person.
Exactly.
So I definitely waited a long time before anybody knew I was dating. I was going out a lot with my girlfriends. I'd get a sitter. I guess it was like, Mommy's going out with her girlfriends. And if I had a date, I would get a sitter. But I waited a long time. And then, I think you figure it out along the way. There were a couple times I went on a date and my oldest at the time, let's say she was 16 or 17, knew about it. But my youngest did not. The other two didn't know. Somehow, I had to, maybe she was babysitting and I had to tell her I'm going
and
out.
she was older.
She was the oldest.
yeah.
And so by the time she was junior, senior in high school, she knew. And we actually got in this family argument recently because it came up. I had dated this guy from Argentina and he had spoken Spanish to my oldest who's fluent. And Karis was like, all of this was going on behind my back.
Behind my back.
But that was a very brief relationship.
But I
mean,
agree.
Nothing serious there.
There's no point in don't feel guilt, because this woman was feeling guilty for not sharing, and her kids were I think 16 and 17.
Yeah, they were much older.
They were
than
older.
ours.
They're dating, so they know the signs of dating, right? But there's no reason to feel guilty, because unless you're in love with the person and you really want to make them part of their life, you don't need to tell them anything, and nor do they really want to know. Why, like you said, why get them attached to someone if you don't even know where it's going to go? And that's kind of why, Ryan and I have been dating for 4 years, but it's just been in the last 6 months that we've leaned in. But part of that, I didn't want him around the kids because I had no idea what it was going to look like. And same thing on his end. And he had a much more complicated situation because he had an ex that was very alive and a little malicious. And so I hope she's never going to hear this, but I hope I never meet her. I hope I never have to be involved, because then you become part of this weird toxic relationship. I don't want any part of it. No, sir.
I tell you, the only thing I remember about dating when Ryder was little, because I started dating, I guess it was 3 years in, so maybe it was a little over 2. Maybe it was probably 2.5. Anyway, he was still pretty young. So he's 7 or 8 at this point. But you know how, I think it was Match, or it was one of those where there's a lot of faces and you choose or something like that. He came in and I pretended it was a casting call I was doing, because I totally was. Like, this is
That's
hot
perfect.
guy. This is guy that homeless guy. But because I wasn't ready to tell him.
So how did you?
That's
you
funny.
were
He walked in on me, and I was in the film business, so I kind of was not lying.
But you were
engaged.
engaged briefly. So how
old was
that,
Ryder then?
Yeah, how did you have that conversation with him, or how did you ease this person in? And he also had children.
We got engaged a
grade,
year and a half in, I think,
Yeah.
and so we started dating 3 years after Oliver died. So exactly 3 years, and dated not quite 2, just under 2. And I can't remember if I told him we were getting. I mean, the engagement was a surprise. Now, I knew we were gonna get married, but the engagement itself was a surprise.
Oh, sure, you didn't know that he was.
Oh, I know how they met now. Okay, back up. I have a friend that has a house in Jackson Hole. And so her boyfriend at the time and my boyfriend, their kids knew each other. And they were friends. So here we are all in Jackson Hole going skiing together. And it was so much, it's truly one of the most fun times I've ever had dating somebody, because I was with him and she had her boyfriend and all our kids got along great. And so we had this massive, we skied all day and, drank wine and ate dinner every night. And I was like, I thought this is how it's going to be.
Right.
Dating. This is how dating is going to be on this side.
Oh,
that's not how it always worked out. But, the kids, things over time just, and I truly believe in a way you're right about not meeting the ex, because that poison that comes in, because that was an issue. Like the poison that comes in from someone who hates you and has never met you, says not nice things about you and they've never met you. Because they're unhappy.
Right. That's exactly the position I'm in.
Yeah.
And poison, you're right. And when their children are involved, you have no control over what is being told to these kids
About
you that can destroy a relationship before you even have a chance to have one.
I will say this. I had a conversation with his son, whom you know obviously very well, and he was very sweet. And I just said, that I didn't break up your parents, just so you know, several years. I mean, he'd had a relationship before me. And I said, so I hope you'll just know that I'm not trying to replace your mom. I'm just trying to be another person who supports you in whatever it is you choose to do with your life. So I felt like I was being supportive and did all those. But over time, when things chip away at you over and over and over,
it's almost too much. The chances of your relationship surviving
would have never, and I kept
really
saying
hard,
that if we move in the same house, it will not make it, because I can't have someone coming at me all the time, because I'm already still fragile. I'm fragile enough that I can't handle. And even I've had people tell me now that there's still things that I'm not willing to, I'm having a harder time, attaching to people, because I don't want to have to feel any more pain than I've already been through, that I've lost my mom and, that has its stuff. And then my dad is grieving. It's a lot. And it starts to pile up after a while. And I just want to enjoy my life. Right. What life I have left, I want to be able to enjoy it in the way I want to. And I am. I kind of like my freedom.
Yeah.
I never thought I would like it this
to
much.
Come clean on that date about where you're at, and be honest with yourself and be honest with him. And the truth is, we haven't really talked about this much, but blending is a lot trickier than it looks on the Brady Bunch. I mean,
all the TV shows make it look so easy.
I just thought I could love. I'm a parent. I've got 3 kids. I'll just scoop this one in and love, love, love. But there are all these things that you don't have control over. That whole other if they're divorced, that whole other parent, this may or may not relate to a widower and a widow getting together, which might be a better scenario, although, there's complications there as well, I'm sure. If you're a listener and you're out there on that journey, we could probably do a whole other show.
I'm glad you say that, because I kept thinking, is it me not being accommodating? Is it me just being patient? And I just thought, I was just in so much, I still was in deep grief. That's one of the things that I have to look back and think, that was still too soon for me. It was 3 years in, and then 5 years by the time that was over. And I remember it took years before I could ever really want to date and be excited about it, because it just, I don't know. I don't think I was ready. I think I did it to, like what you and I, we were the great escape
and it wasn't
artists.
The right fit either.
Oh, it definitely was not the right fit.
Part of the reason we all decided to date, I think, or at least I can speak for me, because I started dating fairly quickly after he died. Part of it is just
how quickly.
It was the next day.
Days.
No. My pants were off.
Checking the pulse. And then
we like to tease Whitney about this, but it was days.
But
hey, you know what? There's no judgment.
It was months.
If you've not been there,
it was only a few months.
But now y'all made me lose my train of thought.
I'm sorry.
What was I saying?
We're really good at that.
Shit.
It's a way to, it's not necessarily that you're ready for love, it's that you're tired of the pain.
Exactly.
So you are like, I just want a distraction. I mean, drinking did some of it, but you can't kiss a wine bottle.
Well, you can, I guess.
Well, actually.
Well, it's the oxytocin and the dopamine. You're chasing that, like serotonin, because it comes with new love. When you meet somebody new that's hot and cute and you're kissing this, and so you feel that feeling for a while, but then that tapers off, and then you're left with, oh gosh, now I've got to try to make a relationship work, and I still haven't dealt with all of this back here. I mean, I only had therapy for 1 year. She had retired. That's why I want you guys to meet her.
Yeah, we're gonna have
She's
her on the
so
show.
wonderful, but abruptly had to retire because of all the things going on in her life, and I was not at all ready to not have a therapist. No, and I tried several others on, and one of them. It just never was great after that. And so I felt like there were still some things that didn't get quite, and they probably are. They're still not quite resolved.
Well,
13 years later, sorry to depress everybody.
No, I think everybody is on their own path, and it takes some things. Some people work through really quickly, and then other things, it takes them a little bit longer. But in some ways, you're so much farther along than any of us, And then in other ways, we may be a little bit farther along than you. But
I think the key is to recognize, for me and for anyone, maybe, it's like some of the relationships are just a distraction. Some of them are, I just want someone to hold my, touch my body. I just want companionship. I mean, you're
right.
used to sleeping next to someone every night, and suddenly they're gone, and it's very lonely. And I realized I had no intimacy in my life. I just was missing connection.
Yeah.
So some of it is just wanting that, and then you have to recognize, or is this a life, like something more? Well, and hopefully this is helpful for the listeners, because that's what we really want, is just be true to yourself, pay attention to some of these signs and feelings. Am I just distracting myself? Do I really, I was always checking back in with myself. What are my feelings? Yeah. Is this someone I can see myself with? Am I just filling the void, wasting my time, all the things? So how are you feeling now, Holly, in terms of, are you gonna go on some more dates, or are you just gonna take a break?
I don't know.
Feeling optimistic? Not optimistic?
I'm not necessarily optimistic. I mean, I'd rather just meet somebody through a friend. Next weekend,
Oh, that's right.
we're spending Valentine's Day together.
That's right.
And I think I spent my first Valentine's without Toby with y'all.
Where did we go?
We went to the Four Seasons. Four Seasons. Yeah.
And then I feel like
and we met you
when I came
after.
into the group, it was around Valentine's Day.
It was probably right after that.
We were at Jeffrey's for your I was going to mention earlier.
Apparently we did.
Now we don't like Jeffrey's.
No, we do.
Not if there's a red Porsche parked outside.
we just
No, I like Jeffrey's. I mean,
we should go back to Jeffrey's.
hey, red Porsche guy can
I
show
want to go
up.
to Jeffrey's and run into him. And give
I'd
him a
love him to
stink
run
eye.
into all of us.
Well,
there.
clearly he's doesn't frequent. He didn't know that you needed a reservation.
Yeah.
And I would
Jeffrey's
love to
illiterate.
tell him more about me. So
Illiterate. Okay, well, on that note, we appreciate you guys. If you haven't already, join our Facebook group, the Every Widow Thing Insiders. A lot of widows and widowers are communicating with each other there, helping each other, guiding each other, asking questions. We also get in on it, so it's a good place to go if you want more community. And we just want you to know you're gonna do great. We're all doing our best. You're gonna get through this. And I just posted something today. You can cry in your bathroom when you're overwhelmed. So
You come out of the closet
Or anywhere.
a
the
lot.
closet.
I think
Bye.
I answered that one. I said I was in the closet just to
You
cry
did.
myself to
You
sleep.
did.
Y'all were coming out of the closet every
I know
single
I didn't
day.
chime in because I'm like, well, I cried in the closet too. So.